Extensive deliberation on Nigeria's return to the United States list of worst offenders on religious freedom triggered sharp divisions in Congress on Thursday, with lawmakers split between framing the crisis as a Christian genocide and warning against a dangerous oversimplification of the country's complex violence. President Donald Trump a few weeks ago redesignated Nigeria as a country of particular concern and threatened military action in Africa's most populous nation over alleged Christian genocide, also withdrawal of aids. Well, the lawmakers' debate came as U.S. Congressman Riley Moore, one of the leading voices pushing the genocide narrative, met with the Nigerian delegation led by Nuhu Ribadu, National Security Advisor in Washington. Nigeria was first designated a CPC in 2020 during Trump's first term, a label reserved for the world's worst violators of religious freedom. However, former President Joe Biden lifted that designation months later, a move that drew criticism from conservative lawmakers and some religious freedom advocates. Data from ACLED, a global conflict tracking organization, reveals that Nigeria recorded nearly 12,000 attacks on civilians between January 2020 and September 2025, resulting in more than 20,000 deaths across religious lines. Only 5% of these incidents were classified as explicitly religiously motivated, and among those killed, 417 were Muslims, 317 were Christians. During the congressional hearing, some lawmakers like Representative Sarah Jacobs cautioned that oversimplifying Nigeria's complex security crisis into a purely religious conflict risks fueling further violence. However, Jacob McGee, Deputy Assistant Secretary in the Bureau of Democracy, Human Rights and Labor, defended the CPC redesignation, insisting that atrocities against Christians, particularly in the Middle Belt, are faith-driven. He criticized Nigeria's handling of blasphemy cases, describing slow judicial processes and mob violence as evidence of systemic religious freedom violations. While giving his testimony at the U.S. Congress, Catholic Bishop of Makurdi Diocese, Wilfred Anagbe, urged President Donald Trump to back the redesignation of Nigeria as CPC with concrete action, whatever that would mean. Meanwhile, Oge Onuborgo, Senior Fellow and Director, Africa Program, Center for Strategic and International Studies, warned the U.S. against military action in Nigeria, saying that it could endanger Christians it aims to protect. Now, the Nigerian government has repeatedly rejected claims of religious persecution, arguing that the conflict is driven by criminality, resource struggles, and opportunistic armed groups. Well, for more on the United States Congress hearing or debate on Nigeria's designation as a country of particular concern, CPC, we have joining us now in the studio a legislative and policy expert, Chibuzo Okereke. Chibuzo, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me. Good evening.
Evening to you. What's your overall attitude and response to a foreign nation discussing the affairs of another nation, the way that the U.S. has gone about this issue? Would you say it's like someone crying more than the bereaved, even if the world we know is a global village?
Well, I don't think so. I think that the U.S. have always carried itself as police of the world, and because of their tremendous support to many countries in Africa and around the world, and the trade relationship with Nigeria, and some of the laws they have also enacted at the International Religious Freedom Act and others, they've taken it upon themselves as a responsibility to care for the world, to promote for peace and for democracy. But what is interesting is that it is the U.S. Congress that has now undertaken this special hearing. And the interesting thing also is not just that it's the Congress, but a subcommittee of the Foreign Affairs Committee on Africa. And do you know who went to see them? Our National Security Advisor. Now let a Senate committee invite him in Nigeria to come and give open testimony concerning anything that is happening. In fact, it's not to my knowledge that since the beginning of this administration, he has been in the National Assembly for any hearing. And so this is also a lesson for the Nigerian legislature that a subcommittee, not the main committee, a subcommittee, right, had this important hearing that was televised all over the world considering important issues about Nigeria.
And it lasted for more than 4 hours.
And it lasted for more than 4 hours. And people from the State Department were there to give testimony. They even had multimedia and, equipment to take testimonies direct from Nigeria, from bishops from Nigeria, from people from Plateau, and what have you. So for me, it's a great lesson, and the advocacy we are pushing for the kind of internal reform we want to see in our legislature.
Good.
To have the capacity to be able to take on all these things and rejig our oversight, governance, and committee system to deliver effectively.
Now, you've gone ahead of me. You've gone ahead of me to raise that issue. I'm going to bring up the issue of the quality of people that want to represent the country, quality capacity. I'll bring that up.
Yeah.
But before that, do you think, Chibuzo, that this may have been prevented if we, by we I mean our legislators, that's what you're talking about, have deliberated on this issue? And what's your sense of they're not even discussing it?
Well, it's a big challenge. I think it started from when there was that report from the U.S. concerning some, dark activities, so to say, of the USID that, directly point to issue of insecurity in Nigeria. The Nigerian legislature never bothered to conduct any hearing, just public hearing, not investigative this time, because the two public hearing should have happened on if some U.S. congressmen and senators have raised issue that their own international organization that is supposed to be an instrument for development, that they now have intelligence that some of their activities may have contributed to insecurity and some other issues in Nigeria and other countries. Nigeria, being an important and strategic country, should have conducted an important public hearing on that. And it's not the first time. Some of us, when INEC said they had a glitch after spending 350 billion in 2023, asked for a legislative hearing to understand what happened or how to prevent it. They simply said that it was not their call to do so. And this is the kind of challenge we have. But with the example that we have seen, I am sure that we have to start rethinking our process. But the issue of people who represent us is a product of our leadership recruitment gateway.
Yeah, because you're trying to take that.
So, but I don't want to go there yet until you ask. But you see, it's very, very important that we respect our legislature, that we empower our legislature. We may keep blaming the people there, right? But I don't think that is only about those who have. We can't change people when they have gotten there, right? So we'll talk about some of those factors. But the legislature needs to be empowered and respected.
What do you mean empowered? Are they not empowered?
Maybe, when I say empowered, I know certain factors, about what I'm discussing.
Like which factors?
Being able, to take up that responsibility constitutionally and deliver it.
Do they need empowerment? Do they need to be told?
That capacity needs to be there. Right now, the capacity is not there.
No.
You need the capacity to do the job.
What do you mean capacity is not there? I don't understand.
Oh, you think the capacity is there?
No, capacity in terms of intelligence or in terms of...
Well, in terms of understanding legislative practice and procedure, in terms of having the necessary tools to do the job. Most of the time, what we talk about is the vehicle they are going to drive. We shouldn't be investing in vehicles for legislators to drive. We should invest in equipment and research department and the, ability within the framework of the system to be able to do oversight, to be able to respect resolutions, and also for the legislature not to just wake up and do any kind of resolution. Your resolution must be such a resolution that you can override the president on without anybody, but we are too, we play to partisan, we play to ethnicity and religion. I don't want to say certain things, but there was an incident that happened in the National Assembly that will surprise you. In the last administration, a certain minister who was being invited for more than 4 times, he didn't show up. The time he showed up and questions were being asked, one of the senators walked out that they're asking her too many questions. That after they've been looking for her for a long time, now she showed up and they're asking her too many. And he protested and left the place.
And nothing happened.
In night assembly. And nothing happened. So that is what I'm telling you about, the capacity, the institutional, willingness to be able to take on the constitutional responsibility. How much respect do you think members of the executive have for our legislature? Most times they receive 10 letters and they never show up. Sometimes a certain minister in the Ninth Assembly even informed a legislative committee in the House of Rep that he should be allowed, the investigative hearing they are conducting should be stepped down, that he wants to go and take more loan, that is after taking that loan, that if they continue this hearing, the loan he wants to take, the Chinese people will not give him, that they should, and in fact that he has called the speaker so that this will not happen. So you see all those kind of situations where legislature had to even make resolution appealing to the president to ask his people to come and answer to the legislature. And that is from the point I'm talking about, capacity and respect to be able to, deliver on this mandate. And but it cannot be, we have in the Senate, in this 10th Assembly, 80% rate of turnover. In the House of Rep, 77%.
And that
is the number of new people. Yeah, so because they will need the time. But are we going to give time to somebody who is not interested in having the capacity to do so? It has to be somebody who is interested in developing personal capacity to take on the constitutional responsibility.
That's particularly what I'm talking about. Yeah. These pictures you have painted, it's just like when they were talking about the political will to do what needs to be done. Is it there? But some are daggers drawn over the quality and the caliber of the delegation sent to interface with the U.S. over the diplomatic so-called row. NIA was excluded. The NSA led the ministers. And someone said that U.S. watches this thing. Should the NSA be the one leading ministers to this kind of hearing? The quality, there were so many issues that were brought up. But should that be the case? And then also answer the question, how has non-absence of ambassadors affected either negatively or otherwise this matter?
Well, it's very unfortunate. And that's why I talk about capacity of the legislature and other, and the institutional framing of the Nigerian statecraft. Is it at the discretion of a president to choose when to appoint ambassadors? Are we supposed to continue to have? We had it in the ministries until we saw the problem with the former president who stayed 6 months plus. And we had to make a law to reduce the timeline for appointment. Why do we approach, our governance framework in piecemeal until the thing affects us, crushes us before we now wake up and, do a kind of piecemeal effort to address the situation? I think that if we had ambassadors, maybe it will help to engage. But it cannot obliterate the fact that there are critical insecurity situations Nigerians are facing here. The people that are being killed, the people that are dying, the people that are, the schools that are now being said to be shut down, across certain parts of the country. So ambassadors are important, but we are facing a dire situation. I had discussion with some people in our armed forces who say that the Nigerian politicians appear not to be aware that Nigeria is at war. That the character and behavior of the politicians, because we're in a democracy, so, the commanders are civilians who are elected representative of the people, in quote.
But the president is called the CNC.
It's the CNC. So not just the president, many other civilians who are elected representatives or governors, they have key role. If the feeling of some of the people in the armed forces is that Nigerian political elite and class is not aware that they are at war, because they are not leading the war, that is a big problem.
It's a big problem.
It's a big problem. So it's also the psychology is there. We pretend in this country that things can fix itself. It doesn't work that way. It's just like the way the government has responded. Remember, the U.S. government is not asking Nigeria for anything.
No.
It's asking Nigeria to protect its own citizens.
Fix it, yeah.
Right? Its own citizens, not U.S. citizens in Nigeria, Nigerian citizens, that there are killings going on, and we are designating you as CPC.
That's a shame.
So, one of the presidential aides said he has gone to France to speak to the French media, that he's going to Germany and Spain, and I was so taken aback. I mean, what kind of strategy,
is it a strategy? Is that what is needed?
Is there a strategy to counter? So there was a reaction, not a response, when this happened, and that was my concern. So we don't react as if, somebody is after the president. It appears that almost every presidency, there are people who are just interested in how can it should not be said that we are not doing our work. Whenever there is anything, what we must do now is to change the narrative by reacting and strategizing in denial, rather than to respond and collaborate to achieve a result that is sustainable. Because nobody from anywhere in the world is asking us to do anything different but to take care of our citizens.
What lesson, just briefly, we run away. You've painted the picture.
Yeah.
The security people said, it's like we don't even, the political way to do it is not even there. We don't seem to care, which is what you're saying. What lessons do we garner? Because you made a very key point. America is asking Nigeria to protect Nigerians, not that America is seeking anything from us.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So what lessons do we learn from this, particularly in the light of, he said 400 and something killed by will soon leave and 317 killed.
Yeah, so Nigeria is a country that has so many expectations. It's expected to be a great leader, not just in West Africa, but Africa. So the lesson is that we are no longer there in the Committee of Nations. And that is why a subcommittee of the U.S. Congress is now sitting on Nigeria's case. So we must raise the bar in our leadership. You remember when the issue came up in the National Assembly, there was even argument whether they should go into the deliberation, or is this the call of the executive? So is it that we don't understand constitutional responsibility of the legislature and the executive, and who should do what, that are representatives of the people? Deliberation is at the core, and representativeness of the people is what we do. And that we don't commit any offense by deliberating on anything and arriving at a resolution we can use to support executive to take action. And it must be open, accountable, and transparent, just like the U.S. subcommittee did. Everybody, you invite people to get testimonies, you understand. So I'm happy that the congressional hearing have now said there are many tools in this toolbox. Let's pursue the issue of development, collaboration, and what have you. And my counsel to the American government and the Congress is not about restarting programs or to promote peace and conflict resolution. Do we know we have National Institute for Peace and Conflict Resolution in Nigeria? Who has asked their role in this? In fact, they put under Ministry of Foreign Affairs to be supervised. How can they function there?
We can't treat all this.
So we have issues we need to change in this country.
And paradigm is very important to work with. Chibuzo, legislative and policy expert, Chibuzo Okereke, anytime we'll have you. We really do pick your brain. Thank you so much for being here. All right, that's the much we can take on this edition of This Week. Thanks to our production team here in Abuja, Lagos, and of course, London. You join us same time next week for another exciting edition. I am Ndi Amogo. Bye.